The hour 5 o'clock, having arrived, call to order this Wednesday, October 22nd meeting of the Alcohol Licensing Committee. Roll call
Shannon,
here.
Singer,
Here.
Meisner.
Here. I have one, approval of the agenda. Committee member can choose to remove an item from the agenda or rearrange order. However, introducing new items is not allowed. Any proposed changes require a motion and second approval from committee. Agenda shall be approved at each meeting. Can I get a motion for approval?
Second.
Moved by Mashak, seconded by Singer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda, we've got one item, approval of the minutes from the September 2nd, 2025 ALC meeting.
I would move to approve, but I just want to double check. I think Stephen's last name is. Is there an E in there?
I'm
There's
sorry.
like an E
I will
after that.
fix it.
Okay.
Sorry.
I just a scrivener's error. but correct.
Yes, that was not on purpose.
The autocorrect.
I'm sure.
I'll get that. All right.
Moved by Singer, seconded by Mashak, all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, one item for consideration, discussion, possible action regarding all you can drink specials at Class B liquor establishments in the city of Whitewater. So I know this was kind of brought up by resident complaint or concern. So we'll have that or a statement from them first, I think, and then we'll just kind of get the other perspectives as well and go from there. So I know you were the one that had brought this to our attention, so if there's anything you kind of want to add to kind of what brought it up, stuff like that, and we can go from there.
Well, it came up, my son, who was a new student here at UWW, went downtown and, got caught up in this. And, I'm not against drinking alcohol, kids, but I think that there may be a point where the intersection of a business's need or want to make money and the safety of both the public and these students who aren't 25 yet, and science will tell us that the brains are not fully developed at 25. So that intersection, you know, when it's crossed, I'm naive. I don't know what alcohol licensing committees can do or should do. I appreciate that you listen to this, my concerns about this. And I don't want to get windy on this, but if we look at the words, all you can drink, they seem to fly in the face of drinking responsibly. And I don't know, I know what I've taught my son, but there's a combination here of temptation and GABA. And GABA is that neurotransmitter that we get when we drink alcohol that breaks down our inhibitions. And we probably, most of us have felt that, you know, it's like, well, you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. You know, you can do anything and you make bad decisions. And if a business owner, a bar owner takes advantage of that, especially in a university town, you know, I mean, I understand our culture. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm a Wisconsinite. And I understand our culture, but this type of behavior may have crossed the line. And I just wanted to bring it to you here and learn and listen and see if anything can be done about this.
I know Dan, you've done some research on, I think it was lacrosse, something that they had kicked around, or what the status of all you can drink KYCD can be in or is in the city of Whitewater currently. If you want to present
Sure.
that.
And
So I'm not going to address the case, that, Mr. McLaughlin, sorry, McLaughlin. Referenced at all. But just before I get into that stuff, I do wanna make it very clear that I think, that personal responsibility is kind of the utmost overarching goal here. If there's anything we can do to assist people in doing better jobs of having personal responsibility, I'm all for it. I dug into some of the research here, what other communities have or have not done. As well as publications that are out there. And I think generally speaking, I'll kind of just go through what I found. The sale of alcohol to an intoxicated person is illegal. That is a statute and ordinance that we can address. There is no state law prohibiting all you can drink specials though. So I am not aware of any other municipalities that have current ordinances against all you can drink specials. Like you mentioned, La Crosse at one point considered one. And I don't know the reasoning necessarily why that did not get enacted. The only thing I can say is I think it is a difficult thing to, actually enforce because, all right, it's not all you can drink, but it's diners, or now it's, name it. It in all practicality, it's all you can drink. So I think maybe there's some issues there that would have to be worked out if there's interest in having an ordinance that addresses this issue. Here locally, there are at least 3 taverns that offer all you can drink specials. Humpers and Mitchell's do that Wednesdays, Thursdays. College Pub, it's Wednesdays through Thursdays, Fridays. And Cheap Shots is occasionally on Thursdays. That's the best we could find right now. There may be more. I did speak with the special agent in charge of the Wisconsin Division of Alcohol Beverages, and he kind of gave me some further. I guess he was in agreement that he didn't know of anybody that had an ordinance currently. He forwarded me on to this policies and strategies to prevent and reduce excessive alcohol use in Wisconsin document. And in that, I found on page 17, one of the recommendations for municipalities was to prohibit by ordinance consumption-based drink specials, such as time limited pricing, specials which increase drink volume without increasing the price, and all you can drink flat fee specials. So they did have a recommendation in there to address that. I also found a study, which was a study of studies, essentially a systematic review of drink specials, drink special laws, and alcohol related outcomes. This is from 2020, I believe. But I made a few notes in the agenda packet here, where, there was something of note. All you can drink specials were associated with higher consumption per sections. They were associated to higher rates of college binge drinking. There was a Sao Paulo, Brazil study that found that all you can drink specials increased odds of exiting bar with a BAC greater than or equal to 0.08. People were 2.4 times more likely apparently in that study. And there were multiple studies that found that people who attended establishments where all you can drink promotions were available had a higher probability of reaching a blood alcohol content equal to or above the 0.08 level. They did note that additional research is needed to determine if laws prohibiting drink specials discourage problematic drinking behavior, which is really kind of what we're trying to get at here. So no nail coffin necessarily on whether or not an ordinance would address the issue that we're talking about.
The one question I had is how can over serving, for example, be police? Because obviously I'm assuming you're not sending, an undercover agent and to get,
No,
to partake.
typically it's working backward when we have somebody that's stumbling on the street. And we're able to determine, yeah, they just left the bar and now we're like, okay, well, how is this person? Were they recently served? It's rare that happens, but it does happen. But a lot of times we just don't either have the manpower to go and address it with whoever bartender may have been. Or there just isn't a good enough connection of, yes, they were overserved here, because we see on video that, yep, they were given however many drinks versus arriving there, they're intoxicated, or arriving there under the influence of some other drug. That's a difficult thing sometimes to prove.
Brian, I kind of follow up on that. Do we track, I know, the Rock County Health Department in the past has done studies on like place of last drink.
Yes, we had them
Do
through
you have
Jefferson
that?
County.
But do you have that information for like when you have an alcohol related offense, whether it be an OWI or?
We don't track that anymore. That was
We don't?
probably,
Okay.
I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, there was an initiative through Jefferson County.
Okay, it must have been the public health departments at that time.
Probably, yeah.
But it would be interesting, you know, just for our own research, if that was collected, like, and layering that over when the all you can drink specials are, just to know, like, you know, where was that place of last drink before that alcohol offense?
Right.
That, you know, I don't also want to put a bunch of administrative burden on our officers, but, that might be helpful. And then, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was on council when we talked about the restricting alcohol, all you can drinks. 10+, I mean, it's been a while. And it was interesting because that one was brought by other tavern owners who did not offer all you can drink. Asking the city to ban all you can drink because it was the newer bar owners that were doing it, and apparently it was a lot of money, but they still wanted us to ban it. What we struggled with legally, you know, with our city attorney, and that was that issue you bring up with like, okay, we can say all you can drink, but what about diners? Which is essentially all you can drink, or, you know, any, you know, and then it got into, well, do we set minimum prices, and it just, the logistics and just, that's where we got hung up. Before was like, how do you create an enforceable ordinance, given the amount of loopholes that could exist in terms of that. So I think that was the struggle before with enacting something. But I do think overconsumption, and that is a concern. Obviously, we do have a number of bars in our community, and a lot of you know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, you know, are peak times that keep your guys.
Even Wednesday nights, yeah, it's really kind of. low.
Yeah, I was a little interested to see like the all you can drink on like Thursdays, because usually you'd think an all you can drink would be to drive in traffic on a deader night.
Mm.
Like Dimers, I think was a Monday or Tuesday when Comfort did it. I don't know if they still do it, but you know, you'd think that would be used for a non, you know, Thursday, I don't think, at least when I was a student many years ago. It seemed like Thursday night was like, you didn't have any problems.
I think they're competing for the crowd.
Oh, that's, okay. So, yeah, but I just want to give a little bit of backstory on kind of where we ran against the wall before, and it seems like that maybe is what Lacrosse ran into. The other example we had used, or had our city attorney had kind of looked at, was Illinois has like a happy hour ban statute. There's a statute in Illinois that kind of addresses this, that I think our city attorney at the time had tried to use as a kind of jumping off point, but then it got into those rabbit hole of like, well, what about this? How do we, you know, so at the time, we just didn't have the infrastructure, and probably still want to try to like create something that works, and maybe that's why there is very few out there. Because it is hard to, without getting into like price fixing.
Right.
Greg, any initial thing on the?
My struggles with doing something as an ordinance, not allowing it. It's for all the reasons, how do we enforce it, the pricing. You know, the recommendation 17. It seemed very vague, in that document. Consumption-based drink specials such as time-limited pricing specials. I don't know how many happy hours happen here in our restaurant, flash bars. You know, anytime, for me, and I'm sure other council members, when we're looking at an ordinance, how can the police enforce it? We have laws on today that you can't overserve people. I grew up in maybe Wisconsin and coastal and Michigan. I don't think I've ever heard of someone getting, unless they get hurt, and then you backtrack into
Right.
that bartender was held accountable. I don't think there's an easy answer. I don't think an ordinance prohibiting it will fix it. I like some of the options that were put out. But I'd really like to. Chief Meyer understand. Back to it. With option B or C. Enforcing.
Page 5.
So there's. I love option 2, which is, we do an educational campaign on the dangers of excessive alcohol consumption. I think that's something we should do, and maybe something with some reoccurrence as new students come in. I would imagine every municipality with the college deals with something like this. To your point, our brains aren't developed at that age. But then option 3 was additional enforcement on bartenders who want to be serving intoxicated individuals. I don't know what that looks like.
It's really more so, asking our staff when, our staffing permits, if we have somebody stumbling around. If there's an opportunity to backtrack again, like maybe they just stepped out of this tavern, is there a way we can investigate that further? But it's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's asking.
What about walkthroughs? I know your officers do walkthroughs. If they're going in on a walkthrough and they see somebody.
Oh, yeah,
Completely
that's addressed.
what's.
Yeah.
They will address that issue?
Yes.
Okay.
But again, it's the. Really kind of playing down to like almost getting video evidence in some of these cases, seeing them be served because. I mean, a lot of people are just flowing from one to the next and maybe they have some drinks. First off, a lot of people are going downtown already intoxicated, right, because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
So. Figuring out where it is actually served, it is difficult, but I mean, it's a point of emphasis that we can try.
I mean, just being over 0.8, 0.08 and walking. Is that illegal?
No,
So you have to
No.
be causing and breaking some other rule?
yeah,
or
you're to be publicly, yeah, it's more to your actions. In conjunction with an alcohol level, so, yeah, you can be walking around at 2:0, if you're just. Doing your thing and getting home. You're never gonna be cited for,
So if we consider option 3, where we're gonna look at additional enforcement, the people making the right choices who feel like they shouldn't be driving or walk there and walking home, it wouldn't impact them, shouldn't impact them.
no,
The one thing that I was, that I've considered too, was we recently changed the parking fines to $40, and that would include parking downtown overnight. One of the concepts that I remember from my criminology class is that the best criminal deterrent is the guarantee of being caught. And I can especially see when college student, I'm guaranteed, if I leave my car here for 8 hours, I'm guaranteed to end up with a $40 parking ticket. Or I risk it at something lower than 100, be it 99 or 50% or what have you, I'm gonna try to drive. And then they make that dumb choice. Is there a way, for example, we could set up systems where, hey, because I know, like, I think that as a tavern league, or there's some sort of required safe rides, if there's some better way to, I don't want to encourage bad behavior, but I also don't want to make the bad behavior be the result of they were fine until they weren't, and now where are they
Yeah,
at?
if if we outlawed alcohol in Whitewater, they would go somewhere else.
Exactly.
And then come back to Whitewater. That's an extreme. So why did we stop tracking? Was it an outside resource on the over serving?
it was just, so it was being produced, the data was being produced for Jefferson County.
Okay,
And their program ended, so. We just, we weren't entering into their spreadsheet.
and then when we apply for when someone applies for an alcohol license. The thing we're looking at is citations and violations. We're not tracking it, it's hard to. It's kind of along those, rather than punishing the person, punishing the establishment owner and being good stewards in the community and. Not over serving, whether it's no drink, drink all you can, or
Even just how do we get people home?
Well, I know years ago, and not to interrupt your
No.
point, but I think, if there was a way. I don't know if you pro Phoenix or whatever, whether it be a spreadsheet, just to be able to track that again on alcohol offenses and then include that in the renewal packet.
It-
In
And
terms
I
of
can
like,
see some in the past, a certain bar. Did come back up with, I wanna say it was Mag Board on their background, and it comes through on that
yeah.
spreadsheet and in Dan's memos, and then.
But if they
comes
weren't
council.
cited, if it was one of those situations where. We have 100 OWIs in our community and 75 of them, the place of last drink was.
Right.
The Mad Bull or not,
Right.
or Tavern X.
Yeah.
It would, like, at least it's something that, okay, is there additional it maybe targets your enforcement as well, because. Obviously, your resources are finite
Mhm.
on most of those nights. Is just having a little bit more understanding of. Where are some of the. For lack of a better term, problems. Coming from, and like you said, they do move around, but I know there are certain bars that are the last stop on the line. Or at least they were in the past, or if there's, group that, because of the alcohol or the all you can drinks are like. People are getting blitzed and then. Leaving and, one alcohol offense or another, happens.
I really like option 2 with the educational campaign, but not just stopping with the city police, also asking the university what they're doing in education.
And I think they do, like as new freshmen come in, I think they do have programs that they consistently offer for that new group of students.
And I think some of that is more targeted too, because especially it's in student, like freshmen, sophomores, underage drinking specifically, but.
Right.
But that doesn't stop, the 24-year-old from.
And I know years ago, and maybe it was when you were a patrol Dan, but the university had a bus. After hours, like for a hot minute. Like kind of to try to help address, get people at least back up onto that side, closer to where the density is, but. It didn't last long.
No, I don't remember how long it was around, but. Yeah, I mean,
But that's the other thing, we have a pretty bad lack of public transportation in the community. I mean, the rideshare, the taxi is done by that time. There's really no other way.
There's no Uber, there's no Lyft, that would be, if you're in Madison or Milwaukee, yeah, you
Yeah,
just
they have
dial
that
that
safe
up
ride,
and.
and you also see like, I've seen taverns in the past with like that safe ride, like, hey, if you need to call, but. Yeah, so that works in larger urban settings.
it's not only that, but a lot of people that are walking back home, they're going through the historic neighborhoods. That's where you're having your property damage and you get
I remember,
lighting and all that
remember
stuff.
our former city clerk found somebody is randomly sleeping on her couch.
Yeah.
in the morning.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard other stories too, where somebody walked into somebody's garage, yeah.
So I just wanna, I think part of it is also like. People are, the reality is there's going to be. Alcohol consumption, there's gonna be excessive alcohol consumption, but, what's kind of a multifaceted approach in terms of education outreach. That can be done, or other, maybe talking with Matt, with the Chief Peterlin or Chancellor about like, hey, how do we help? Is there any resources they have in terms of making sure people can get to where they need to go safely? Because no matter if you're driving or even if you're walking, if you're that intoxicated, I mean, you've got the creek. Or not lacrosse or wherever the body,
You got the
when they
quarry.
keep falling in, and we have had one person make it out to the quarry many years ago and died. Was it 2?
2 years apart.
I remember the one, but yeah, so to me, it's just not even the OWI and the driving while intoxicated, there's other hazards. If you're not. A full or somewhat mental.
Can I build on your point? May I?
Sure.
So first off, I want to acknowledge the personal responsibility. Because yes, that is definitely the biggest part here of this is personal responsibility, education. To help, I think not just not to drink, to help people understand, young people understand how to drink. Right, drink responsibly, it's uber important, but then we get into. these safety issues, the safety issues of the people who drink, bring it on themselves, personal responsibility, and the general public. Because not only vandalism, but a car is a deadly weapon, and a drunk person behind that is a problem. And so I guess what, I agree that trying to control these drink specials by one at a time, can't do this, oh, no, all you can drink, you can't, that's not gonna work, there's always gonna be loopholes in that. But could you limit the risk to the general public and to the students by limiting the nights that drink specials can be offered? Any drink special can be offered. It doesn't matter, but doing them on Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, Friday nights, Monday nights, and Saturday nights? You know, I mean, would that work? Would that actually limit the exposure then of these accidental binge drinking? Because, you know, that can happen, and I think it does happen with these, as Dan's report, you know, showed that it, when you offer these drink specials, 2.4 times the incidence of people coming out of these bars over 0.08.
Cause what was it, there was one place that had three nights out of the week that they were.
Yeah.
But that almost becomes a point of business model as opposed, that's not a drink special, that's a business model decision, frankly.
Notice they're all on this street,
Yeah,
you know, and there's. I guess they're the farthest, I mean, hey, we gotta grant the customers to us.
I'll also tell you where the college students go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be helpful also. Yeah, because to me, enforcement is kind of the concern and both on a capacity and just feasibility. But also helping our police department, because I know some of those nights are tough. In terms of volume and chaos and that, so yeah, if there was some targeted way to address it. I would want to take into account some of the. Staff, you know, some of the issues you're facing, chief, with. With having to. Kind of corral. Especially around bar time. On certain nights.
yeah, I guess. In my mind, it's still, you still have the issue of. All right, yeah, we can only do that Thursday nights now, but so instead of Wednesday and Friday, we're gonna do our nights. I still think there's ways around. The underlying goal of not having just mass. Binge drinking.
And maybe Stephen, you can weigh in terms of like, you know, Ken's point about banning special, like just specials, period, but would that include like, hey, you know, get a bucket of Bud Light for $20 that, you know, on a Sunday when they're trying to attract people for NFL, or, you know, depending on the night, like. What would no specials mean from a legal standpoint in terms of like, what would be allowed? Like
If
just-
you phrase it that way, then it would likely be any special on any sale of alcohol. So it's all gotta be at the standard price that they do it. For any other day of the week, that they can't reduce it for. A period of time, I guess we could technically say that it's whatever price it is at the time you open. That day would be,
I think that would
One
honestly
way.
contribute to making it worse, cause then I could see somebody being like, alright,
But-
well then. Congrats, I'm gonna just undercut everybody in town and
probably
Big
open.
10 cents off of a drink and I'll charge $1 a piece and that's my permanent thing and.
Put a limit on how much the minimal amount is, that it's not to be.
And then you
less
get
than
into price
this amount
fixing
for-
and.
On your time on council, have we ever considered, and maybe this is state statute, we can't. But like, you can't buy beer after 9 in Janesville.
We can close bars earlier.
Has that ever been discussed? Why it'd be popular, like, brought that up?
But maybe not with the students, but. Yeah, no, not to my knowledge, we haven't talked, at least in the last 10 years or so, about changing the hours of. I know we've extended them like for a St. Patrick's Day and. I forget,
Usually they like.
Homecoming or something like that, where it was like 3 in the morning, you know, it was a little bit later, but we've never talked about moving it to like 1 or to midnight or something.
I wouldn't touch that with a 20-foot pole.
What are your thoughts on? You don't wanna win.
No, I mean, I think there would be, I don't know, without knowing, so you said there's no like statutory.
There's no statutory restriction on where that would require us to go that late. Now, if you do that, you're going to have the tavern league up in arms. You're going to have anybody who enjoys going to the bars on the weekends up in arms. You're going to get pushback from residents. On that. How much pushback? I don't know the community well enough at this point to,
And I could see
Make
the tavern league, because that is people's livelihood.
Yeah.
You know, if we're restricting those hours, if we cut it back, people have kind of made their business model based on.
I can already hear the public comment section of the meeting. And that's. We already had people up in arms over stuff on windows.
Well, that's gonna happen with any change.
Yeah.
So if I understand right, then the problem with, limiting the nights for the drink specials to say 1 night, whatever night that would be. I don't think a good night is Thursday, to be honest with you, because a lot of kids have classes the next day. But this isn't only about kids, and I understand that. So if I understand that problem, it is that then the bars would. So you could, so the way that the way that I see it here, and please correct me if I'm wrong though, is that they would have to set a price. If they wanted to do a day out of that, then their regular price would have to be set at that price. Right, so they're at the special price that they want to do. Say they wanted to do it on a Wednesday night. And so in order to do it on a Wednesday night, if you limit it to Saturday nights, they would have to set their price of beer, say at 10 cents. Right, and then that would have to be the regular beer price. To me, that seems like a self-limiting idea, because now your business model has to be built in order to support that. So I don't know how hard enforcement would actually be there, because it would be self-regulating. And as far as enforcement, I don't think that it would, in my opinion, I don't think that it would take a great deal of effort from the police, because they have to advertise these drink specials. And would you be militant about enforcing them? I don't think you'd have to do that. They're gonna, I think most bar owners are probably responsible and aren't intending to do this, but they have a need to make money. And again, that balance there is what's gonna drive this whole thing. So if you limit it to say Friday or Saturday night, 1 night, you would reduce, I think empirically reduce the exposure to binge drinking, to accidental binge drinking. And the only way around that is for the bars to actually set their prices so low that they'd find a place where they couldn't go any lower. Would that contribute to the binge drinking? I don't think so. These bars do that for a reason, and so take, for instance, bars on this street. Why do you think that they can actually have an all you can drink for $12? You gotta think about that business model. How does that work? Well, what's the price of alcohol? So obviously they're making that work, and they're gonna push as hard as they can to make as much money as they can. And when it crosses the line of responsibility, which is all you can drink does, in my opinion, and I think in most rational people's opinion, cross reasonable people's opinion cross the line, you know. What can be done then to at least limit the exposure to these accidental binge drinking, especially in towns that are full of under 25-year-olds, underdeveloped brains that are tempted and still learning personal responsibility. And these incidents where they lack personal responsibility not only cost a lot of money, and I'm fortunate my son didn't get hurt. And I'm thankful for that, but he could have hurt somebody else. He could have hit somebody, he could have, you know, ran into a house, all of these things. And so I think it's a very serious thing. And doing nothing because I won't. So the Tavern League has its place. But is it stronger than our responsibility for public safety? It's a balance, and I understand that like everything in life is a balance, but you know, if something can be done, I would hope that you would use your creative minds to at least try something here, because I do not believe that this is all you can drink specials are working well, especially on Wednesday and Thursday nights. You know, why do they have it on Wednesday and Thursday nights? Because they're slow on Wednesday and Thursday nights and they want to get people out there to the bars. That's my opinion. That may not be the truth. I don't go to bars at all. And even when I was in college, it was Thursdays until I learned that was not a good night to go out. And then it was Fridays. You know, and that's really what it was.
Yeah, because basically in Whitewater, there's not a whole lot of Friday classes. So Thursday night becomes the Friday night.
Dan, I know, in the past, I think, Chief Otterbacher maybe had done this where there's meetings held with the tavern owners. You know, Chief, are you continuing, has that practice continued, or kind of what's your approach in terms of like engaging those owners, business owners, license holders? And, you know, hey, here's what we're seeing, you know, hey, just build that dialogue to try to build natural compliance and have them help where they can without us having to like.
Yeah,
Bring in a hammer.
It's not as formalized as it once was. We used to have, we had a team of officers that were kind of assigned one or two of the taverns to be, this is your main point of contact. Right now, it's kind of more so just the one-offs for our third shift staff that kind of do all of the walkthroughs. So, yeah, we don't really have anything that's super formalized right now.
Cause I forget what the issue was. It wasn't the all you can drink, but I know there was some concerns between the department and. Yeah, you know, alcohol consumption. So I know at that time, Chief Otterbacher, there were some meetings where. The owners were invited.
Yes.
And then there was a dialogue. And then apparently there might have been some. So I mean. To me, it's also the data. It would be nice to see some data, but also kind of what you're seeing in terms of. You know, what is going on out there?
Yeah,
And how big is the issue? I mean, we obviously have Mr. McLaughlin and then the example he's bringing, but like. Yeah. What
I
are
can
you
tell you
seeing in
the
terms
crowds.
of like,
the crowds and the volume are not what they were 10 years ago in the downtown. And that is not, I mean, our volume of work has really shifted significantly away from those bar crowds to like first, second shift, more typical types of calls or domestic related calls. So yeah, it's been kind of an interesting, and I don't know if that's a generational thing of people just not drinking as much, young people, or if they're just more likely to stay at home or whatever, if it's like a technology thing and social media. I don't know all the reasons, but
And I've also read articles about younger generation, they don't open bar tabs anymore.
Yeah.
They buy their own. Like there is some shifts, demographically too, I've read.
yeah, I think that anecdotally, just seeing some stuff that, yeah. Consumption from kind of the current. generation that would be enrolled at campus is a lot lower than the generation past. But I wasn't sure like kind of what you're seeing, because I know years ago, usually if I did a ride along, I picked Thursday nights, because that's when the action, would happen.
Yeah, it's just a different degree, like. When I was on thirds, there were times when cars couldn't get through Whitewater Street because there was just a lot of people. And we don't see that anymore. So again, anecdotal, and I don't have hard evidence, I mean, it would actually be interesting to hear from some of the tavern owners to see. What kind of volume they're seeing, because it's hard for us to track necessarily, just to put traffic in.
And even just what their challenges are. In crowd control and stuff like that, like I read a social post the other day from the bar being like, no amount of drunkenness excuses breaking bottles on the dance floor. So I was like, oh, well, that's interesting.
I don't know if this needs a formal request, but I think that, investigating an educational campaign, be something I'd be interested, I'd love. It sounds like. Interested in it too, kind of getting some of that data and seeing how the trends are going. You raised a really good point. I was gonna ask about increasing walkthroughs, but. If the volume isn't there, and maybe we still do it anyway, just as good stewards.
We do, yeah.
On these nights,
Well, wasn't
And
this
it's
also,
heavier at the beginning of the semester.
yeah.
was there also, I remember heat maps when the consultants did their study last year, that there was a pretty strong. Mark on downtown, but I don't know why, if there was a specific type of issue, I just was like, oh, it's downtown, there's bars, and then I just kept reading the report.
Right, yeah. And I don't remember how that all broke down, is in terms of like the specific call type either.
I just remember a very red block over downtown.
I think I remember what the issue was that got up in arms. I'm not sure if you still do it, or it's not as publicized as it once was, but it was like the sting operations of like sending underagers in to like try to make sure that they were checking. So I think that was the issue, but are you
Yeah.
doing those kind of compliance checks as well?
Not as much. I know the state does the tobacco checks. Outside of any local law enforcement, but we have not done. Sending a CI to attempt to purchase sometime.
Yeah, I think that was the issue because it was done quite a bit and then that's
Yeah.
entrapment, and then it's a balance. No, it needed to be vetted, but I think that's where that dialogue had come in before, was around those kind of compliance checks that the undercover or whatever you want to call
So with those requests, it doesn't have to be informal, we can just discuss that. Going forward.
In terms of data, just to clarify, is there anything specific that you're looking for?
More-
Want to make sure.
No, because I'm not an expert in this area, it would be great if we went back to the beginning of the conversation, to understand. The offenders, the high offenders of over serving, but I also don't wanna. Try to do something that's difficult to capture.
Well, like the place blast drink is not difficult to capture, it's just. It's not necessarily like. All encompassing, that's.
And
it's a piece of data, it's not gonna tell, we're not gonna, oh my god, this one place has 50%, I mean, maybe there's some dialogue, but it's not like we're gonna take their license away, or
No.
do stuff like that, it's just
Then we can increase education and walkthroughs and presence and.
in that area, yeah, to me, it's like, what, I think place less drink, but then anything else that would help. Your targeted enforcement and education, because you can't be everywhere at once.
That's really my ask, what information would be helpful in decision making?
It's much like when we were dealing with the speed radars too, a couple months ago, was just trying to figure out where are the areas where. Somebody feels like, yeah, I can put my foot on the gas a little bit harder and, those are the areas that we need to pay attention to. Maybe that's also because there's a radar 2 blocks from my house that I drive by every day the past couple days, so.
So you mentioned, and I think so we do a good job, because of the sting operations of not allowing underage kids in the bar, and that's done, I think. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I think by people at the entrance to the bar, checking IDs. And making sure that they don't go in, is that right? How that was done, or does it have to be done at the bar?
It depends on, honestly, the crowd, if it's a really busy night, some of them will post a door person there checking IDs. If it's a very light night and they're low on staff, it's up to the bartender to do that.
Yeah, cause there's bars that I've walked in and us and the bartender are the only people in there. And, you know, through the night, maybe another person drops in, so there's no way in the business model they could afford to
Right, but
to
they're
put a
not
second
probably
person
doing
in
that.
there, but they'll check.
They're not having a drink special, though,
No.
probably, you know, so, I think it's an interesting idea that maybe if you, you know, talk with the bar owners that. You know, it's bar time, that's a problem, and you know, you just hurt him up, and my son had lost his phone. So he made a bad decision, but what else was he gonna do? He didn't know anybody, he didn't have his phone, he didn't know nowadays you lose your phone, you kind of lose your way in life. And so he had asked for help and was ignored. So I guess what if you know, if you educated the bar owners to try to be responsible, could you talk to them about, you know, keeping an eye on people as they leave the bar to try to help make sure that they're not turning people into the street? You know, just have them, you know, if they did, I don't know how it works because it's been so long since I've gone to bars. But I was a bartender back in the day, and yeah, it was pretty wild. I mean, we served people and there was, you know, no real control, but now we know so much. It's kind of like concussions. You know, you see a concussion, well, they miss it and the guy up in the stands or up in the press box sees it and calls it out. You know, would it be possible to talk with the bar owners, to talk with their staff, to watch for people who are in trouble and try to prevent injury?
Yes, the only thing I would say is it's a fine line between, is it the city's responsibility to educate them, their employees, or is it the owners of the tavern's responsibility? And I think it's probably a little bit of both, but I don't want the thought process to be, well, you guys didn't give us the information. You guys are all licensed by the state and you have to take these courses. You have the information to do your jobs. So I just want to make sure that that's not.
Cause is there
don't
stuff,
swing too far.
cause is there stuff in that training specifically regarding, cause at least when I was meeting with John the other day, he mentioned there was some sort of, I thought. Safe,
Sir.
no, it was like safe ride or something like that, that people, when they were going through that training, got. But I don't know. I'll say I see so many phone numbers in any given week that. I'm gonna see that in the training, and the last thing is, gee, I should, you know. Tattoo it on my arm so I remember it, but what access do those bartenders have to that information? Once they're, you know, more active in the situation, right?
The other thing I'll mention too, just to piggyback off of that is. In terms of the access, I know it was probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, we had the state. It was actually the rep from. The Wisconsin Division of Alcohol could just come in to provide tavern owners with information on. And to be basically an open forum to ask questions, and I think we probably had like 2 or 3 people show up. So. Part of it too is like, I don't know how much. Will there is, tavern owners to be super involved with it either. Obviously, we'll give it a shot, but no one shows up.
Yeah,
It's
and
not
just
doing much.
to be clear, what I was asking, you know, the educational campaign is not. For a credit class, it's a social media, you know, but then I think the conversations with the bar owners. As they're happening, I think bringing this event to light and sharing the concern. We know no one's gonna watch this video because no one ever watches our videos.
The fact we've had a 15-minute ALC meeting is also like a record.
Those are really my requests. And
Yeah.
then what data do you think would be helpful? And
Yeah, and I do think the place of last drink would be helpful, and honestly, probably some feedback from the tavern owners is what issues they're seeing, because they see it firsthand.
Sure. Yeah.
We don't see everybody in there, we're only seeing the largest issues, and then we address that, and we're busy with that for however long, and A lot of times that's up through in past part-time, so. That officer's done with it, and now it's all figured out, so. I do think some feedback, maybe even it's like we could put together some type of a list of questions or something to send out. And to try to just solicit some of that feedback on what issues they're seeing.
Because I'd also be curious if they would mention anything to the effect of. My bartenders are trained on this when they get their serving license, but I'm having to remind them that blah, right?
Right.
Is there something that it just? I mean, I'm a teacher, so I'm constantly repeating myself, but is there something that we're seeing as a common denominator? That yes, it is in the training, but.
And I do think, based on that feedback, I think the state would have a rep that's like, got this stuff, off the cuff. Would they bring somebody in, and provide a training again, if it's something that they want, that could be one of the questions, would you want you or your staff to be trained on? But yeah, and I think going with Chief Tiro too, going direct with him to see what they put out, that's easily something we could blast on social media and. Have our staff go around and just make contact too.
Yeah, I think. This was brought up earlier, that most of that outreach seems to be around the underage.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the over consumption, so I think giving a little bit more focus to the over consumption, whether you're underage or not, would be. Worthwhile.
Before we wrap up, I do want to thank you for
Yes,
one,
thank you.
coming here, bringing this to our attention, but also being professional and calm. It is so it just doesn't happen as often anymore these days, so I thank you for that.
Yes.
So very
Thank you.
respectfully, I thank you all for taking the time to listen and take this seriously, understanding that there's no simple answer, and I understand that. And also, please understand that the personal responsibility here is a very large portion, but teaching kids to drink is a very difficult task. And I hate to say it takes something like this to cause this. Fortunately, and that's why I'm here, fortunately, no one was hurt. And that's the real fortunate thing here. If there's anything that can be done, that you people who, I don't want to say are responsible, but take the responsibility to try to do the best you can. I just wanted to try to help and understand and listen. So again, respectfully, thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely, and if there's something I can say about this council, not only just the people here, but the other 4 members. Is that we are a very good council of picking something up at a meeting or through some emails and then a meeting like this, and then. Continuing to follow it even beyond that initial thing, and so we'll. At some point, once we're past the budget in the next couple of weeks here. We'll definitely be having more conversations and stuff about it, so. Thank you. So, motion for adjournment, moved by Singer, second by Myshak, all in favor, aye. 5:53. We're gonna go to CDC. We're gonna talk about produce.
Oh, yeah.
Broke up, it's the real cool. Annual meetings. Sure. Yeah, the president.
Yeah, so I think you have to there.
Put it back in the day, you were there.